Welcome to the deep dive. Ever look at a mountain range or maybe just a river valley and really wonder how it got that specific
Yeah,
shape?
how it all formed, right.
Exactly. So today we're diving into quantitative geomorphology. It's basically how scientists use, well, hard numbers to figure out the secrets of Earth's landscapes.
Moving beyond just describing what we see.
Right. It's about measuring the forces, the processes, shaping everything from, I don't know, tiny hills to huge canyons.
And it even gives us clues about other planets, which is pretty cool.
For you, the learner, think of this as getting a new toolkit, a quantitative lens to see the world. We've looked into research covering the history, the principles, the cutting edge,
It's interesting how it started, though, mostly just descriptions. Think way back, people noticing how rivers build deltas.
like Herodotus or Aristotle.
Yeah, or even later ideas like the cycle of erosion. It was all very qualitative, a story almost.
But that has limits, I guess. Observer bias, things happening too slowly.
Precisely. Your eyes can only tell you so much. How do you measure something changing over millennia or across a vast area? That's where the numbers come in.
So when did that shift happen from just looking to measuring?
The big change was probably the mid-20th century. There was this guy, Robert Horton, in the 1940s. He started mathematically analyzing river networks.
What kind of things?
Things like stream order, how they branch, and drainage density, like how much stream length you have in a given area. Really foundational stuff.
Okay, so Horton laid the groundwork.
He did. And then Arthur Strahler, he pushed it further, brought in more statistical methods, especially for watersheds. That was, the first big quantitative leap.
But then technology must have kicked things into high gear.
Oh, absolutely. That was the second quantitative revolution. Think digital elevation models, or DEMS.
Those super detailed 3D maps.
Exactly. Plus GIS for analyzing spatial data, remote sensing satellites, aerial photos, LiDAR, even drones now. It just blew the doors open.
Give us a totally new perspective, spatially and over time.
Totally. We could suddenly see entire landscapes, track subtle changes. Anders Rapp was an early pioneer using sediment budgets, trying to quantify erosion and deposition. Tech let us scale that up massively.
Okay, so we have the tools, the measurements.
Yeah.
But what are the core concepts here? What ties it together?
Well, it really boils down to the relationship between process, form, and time. How physical forces acting over periods of time create the landforms we see.
And quantification helps measure that interplay.
Right. We also talk about equilibrium. Is a landscape stable or in a steady state where change in equals change out, or is it dynamically changing? Numbers help define that.
And it's about energy, right? Forces versus resistance.
Fundamentally, yes. Quantifying the energy of, say, flowing water versus the resistance of the rock or soil it's flowing over. That helps predict how the landscape responds.
You mentioned thresholds before, like tipping points.
Exactly like tipping points. Think
Yeah.
of a slope getting steeper and steeper until, bang, a landslide. Quantitative analysis helps pinpoint those critical thresholds.
And feedback loops.
Yeah, positive feedback where a change triggers more change, or negative feedback where it dampens change. You really need quantitative models to track those complex interactions.
Scale matters too, I assume. What you measure locally versus regionally.
Hugely important. Scale dependency is key. And underlying a lot of this now are those DEMS we mentioned, and the whole science of geomorphometry measuring the shape of the land surface.
So it's both the structure, the shape, the pattern, and the function. The processes, the rates.
And how they connect. You got it.
So practically, what are the main measurement tools now, beyond traditional surveying?
Well, surveying and GPS are still vital for ground truth, for really precise local data, but remote sensing is massive.
Satellites, planes.
Yep, aerial photos, satellite images capturing different light spectrums, LiDAR, which uses lasers, amazing for detailed elevation, even through vegetation, and drones give us super high-res images for smaller sites.
And DEMS come from all these sources.
Often, yeah. SRTM from the space shuttle, ASTER, lidar-derived DEMS, drone photogrammetry. They all have different resolutions and accuracies. Sometimes we even use geophysics, like ground-penetrating radar, to see underground.
Sounds like integrating data is key.
It really is. Choosing the right data, understanding its accuracy and scale is critical.
Okay, mountains of data. How do you turn that into, knowledge?
That's the analysis part. Geomorphometry in GIS software calculates slope, aspect curvature, where water flows, drainage areas, all sorts of terrain parameters.
Yeah, and statistics.
Of course. Testing hypotheses, finding relationships, and mathematical modeling is huge landscape evolution models trying to simulate change over long timescales.
It's like simulating how a mountain range erodes.
Exactly, or hydrological models for water flow, sediment transport models. We also analyze river profiles for clues about tectonic uplift, use indices like the hypsometric integral to describe basin shapes, analyze drainage network patterns.
Fractal geometry, too.
Yeah, looking at how patterns repeat at different scales, time series analysis to track changes, even analyzing scientific publications themselves. And now, machine learning and AI are starting to find patterns we might have missed.
This sounds incredibly useful. What's the real-world impact?
Oh, it's significant. Natural hazard assessment is a big one. Using terrain data from DEMS to map landslide risk, for example.
Or flood modeling.
Definitely. Using topography to see where floodwaters might go. Assessing earthquake hazards by looking at fault scarps. Volcanic hazards by analyzing cone shapes. Coastal erosion.
And resource management.
Absolutely. Modeling soil erosion for agriculture. Understanding watersheds for water resources. Maybe even helping find groundwater or mineral deposits. It feeds into sustainable land use planning.
Civil engineering, too.
For sure. Site selection. Checking slope stability for roads or buildings, designing river crossings, tunnels. Understanding the geomorphology avoids costly problems.
And you mentioned other planets.
Yeah. We apply the same quantitative techniques to analyze surfaces on Mars, the Moon, other bodies, looking at impact craters, volcanoes, ancient river channels on Mars.
Using data from orbiters and rovers.
Exactly. It gives us this amazing comparative view. How do landforms develop under different gravity, different atmospheres, maybe with different kinds of water or ice involved?
Wow. So quantitative geomorphology really has changed the game. It's taken us from just looking and describing to precisely measuring and modeling.
It provides this powerful, data-driven way to understand Earth's surface, how it works, how it changes, and yeah, how it compares to other worlds.
It impacts everything from keeping us safe from hazards to managing resources, building infrastructure, even exploring space.
Definitely.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Next time you're out, look at the landscape around you, that hill, that stream valley. Remember, it's not static.
It's a dynamic system, constantly being shaped by forces we can actually measure. What stories are written in those shapes, those numbers? And what future changes might these quantitative tools help us foresee?